Welcome to another episode of Mexican in the Kitchen. I'm going to start with 350 grams of all-purpose flour, half a teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of salt. If where you live you can buy self-raising flour, of course you can use that and skip these steps. Next, I'm going to use some shortening. Some famous brands are Crisco, Inca, that kind of thing. Here in Finland I buy something called Munkin paistorasva. It's basically vegetable fat. Instead of shortening, you could also use vegetable oil or lard, it's completely up to you. Depending on what you choose, you will have a different texture. In this case, this shortening is quite hard, so I'm just going to play with my hands, try to press it a bit, try to mix it, and my body temperature will melt it. This won't mix completely, but we want those lumps to become quite small. After a while, you should have this kind of texture. It hasn't completely mixed, but as you can see, the pieces are quite small. Now we will add 1 cup of hot water. Water doesn't need to be boiling hot, but it needs to be hot enough that the shortening or the lard will melt. That's basically all of our ingredients. So now we just have to mix everything. You could also do this on a mixer on medium power. Kneading this dough doesn't need much. You just need to mix it, knead it a bit until it becomes elastic. Depending on the height of the place you live, you might need more or less water. So I would recommend that you add it slowly and just keep adding as much as you need. Also, this recipe is not that sensitive, so if you feel that the dough is a bit too moist, you can also add a bit more flour and just keep adjusting. In my case, I had to add a bit of flour, and now I've reached the point that I wanted. As you can see, the dough is quite elastic, but also it doesn't get stuck to my hands. So this is the perfect spot. Now that the dough is ready, we can start forming our tortillas. As you can see, I will take my dough, press it between my thumb and my index finger, and I will just form a small ball. Then I will use my hands, just roll it around, try to make it as round as possible, and I'm going to set it down on a tray. Then we repeat the process. We want to be quick because we don't want the dough to dry out. With this amount, you should be getting around 10 tortillas, but of course it depends on the size you make. Once we are done, we'll cover the tray with a wet cloth. We will let them rest for 15 to 20 minutes. After that time, I'm going to take some flour and spread it on my working table. This is because we don't want the tortilla to get stuck to the table, but if you use too much, then the tortilla will be really dry. I will take one of the balls and I will just press it a bit. You don't have to, but I just prefer doing it that way. Then I will take some more flour and I'll just put it on my rolling pin. You don't want this to get stuck. Then we have to spread our dough. And there's no right and wrong way to do it. I've seen people do it in very different ways. I just want to make sure it's as round as possible. So I will spread it a bit, then I will take the dough, turn it around, continue spreading it. And you just want it to be as thin as possible, but not so thin that it will break. This is one of those recipes where the first few tries might not be the prettiest. You will notice the first, second tortilla you make, it's probably not the most symmetric, probably not the thinnest, but the more you try it, it gets easier, and after a couple times you will notice, okay, I know what I'm doing. Even if it's not as symmetric, it doesn't matter. What we care about is the flavor. Once our tortilla is quite thin, we are gonna lift it up. Be careful so it doesn't break. You will notice the dough is quite resistant, even if it doesn't look like it. You might see it's quite see-through. It's very thin, very nice. This is a really good tortilla. Now my skillet is already hot. It's on a 4 out of 6 on my stove, so medium-high fire. I want to stretch my tortilla. Make sure you don't fold it, because it's very common that when you are putting it the first times, some edges might fold, and then if they fall on the hot skillet, you probably won't be able to unfold it. You will notice how quick some bubbles start forming. That means our dough was really nicely made. Here it's hard to give you a time. If I would have to give some, I would say maybe between 20 and 30 seconds. Once we see bubbles forming all over the surface, then that means the tortilla is properly cooked and we can flip it. Once you flip your tortilla, you will notice it might continue inflating, but we want it to cook evenly. So I'm going to take a spatula or a spoon or something and just hit it a couple times, just press it down and make sure it's evenly cooked. On this side, we will cook them for maybe 1-2 minutes. It completely depends on the temperature of your pan. We just want the tortilla to look around the same on both sides. Once the tortilla is ready, we're going to flip it once more, give it another maybe 20-30 seconds, and then we can take it away from the fire. Once the tortillas are ready, I'm just going to spread them on top of a clean kitchen cloth and wait for them to cool down. If you have leftovers, you can put them in the fridge in a Ziploc bag for up to a week. This is how I make flour tortillas. As you can tell, they're quite soft. They smell great. They're really nice. You can use also maybe some oil instead of like the vegetable oil. You can use lard. You can use many other variations. I've seen people do this with butter as well. You can try this recipe. You can modify it a bit, whatever you prefer. But I think this is a very easy recipe to learn. This is the second time I make them, and to be fair, the first one was a bit like there and there. Here, these are really nice. And I'm testing these because I'm trying to make some burritos next time, and I'm gonna show you first the Mexican burritos, the ones they make in Chihuahua and Ciudad Juarez kind of thing, and then maybe in a different video I'll make the, or at least my take into the more Tex-Mex burrito that's the more well-known, like outside of Mexico. But I think this is a great base for burritos. If you have these recently made with some beans, some meat inside, or maybe just like even a quesadilla made with these, it's completely different thing. Because of course you can go to the store, get a really cheap pack of tortillas, but I can tell you it's not even close. Making them yourself, it's a complete different thing. Of course you need some time. This takes a bit. It takes maybe a couple times of making them to really get the hang of it and get them right. They're not as even, of course they're not a perfect circle, but I can tell you the taste is like great. It's really way better than store-bought, and they're fresh. The texture is great. You can make your own tacos with these, like wraps kind of thing. You can use them for whatever you want. I can tell you, if you have the time, you make this, whatever meal you make, it's gonna be 100 times better. So I hope you liked the video. Press like, subscribe, activate the bell, share with your friends, comment, ask any questions you have, and see you in the next one.